Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
This could change your life. The next, say, 25 minutes could have a profound impact on your life. The way you were raised, the things you experience as a child directly connects to the way you act as an adult. And I'm not talking about the obvious things. There may be things floating out there that you didn't know took place or you didn't know you heard as a kid. And a very small child I'm talking about. And that is still with you. And that is piloting your life. And that needs to change. He helps people do that all the time. He has a master's degree in counseling, and he's all about marriage and communication. And that's exactly what his practice is called. Paul Zohav joins us once again here on the program. Hey, Paul, welcome back.
Thank you very much. I enjoy our chats.
Same. This is something that it took me a while to learn, but in the last 3 years, I figured it out how what I experienced in my childhood really controls the way I act in adult life. Now, I made those tweaks and that the rewiring, the reworking, recoding that we've talked about, and we're going to get deeper into today. But it can be just something so insignificant that can have a huge impact on your life, right? The littlest thing as a child.
It could be as early as 2 years of age. There's, we have an awareness mechanism. We're always trying to puzzle out and figure out how the world goes and where we fit in it. And well, there's one couple. Her father never said he loved her, and she tried to get his approval all throughout the length of her childhood without success. And so by the time she grew up, she had a PhD in I'm not good enough. She wakes up expecting to not be good enough. She goes to work. No one looks at her funny. Oh, not good enough. She gets into an argument with her spouse. Not good enough. So basically, she wakes up listening to a always playing preset radio station of not good enough. It's really one of the more painful life sentences that we can pick up. And she picked it up when she was 5, 10 years old. And she marries someone. In his childhood, he learned he had to be aware of the emotional needs of the people around him. He had to be sensitive to the emotional needs of the people around him, because that's what worked for his childhood. And that's who married who on the day of their wedding. The very moment they said, I do, I promise to honor, love, and respect. I am not good enough, was married. I have to be aware of the emotional needs of the people in front of me. Consider the mischief of all that. And so as they try to navigate the length of their marriage, if he gets into an argument, she automatically defaults to, oh, not good enough. And he has learned to be highly aware to her emotional needs, even as she's living a life of not good enough. Can you see the mischief of this? It's really poisonous. Another couple, turns out that his parents cheated at each other. Her parents cheated on each other, and her brother's cheating on her sister-in-law right now. So her radar is set on cheat. Anything he does, anything he says, she's listening for cheat. It's as if she turns on to an internal radio station, National Cheating Radio. Turn in at 12 o'clock. How do you spot a cheater? 2 o'clock. Do you stay married to a cheater? And so she's listening to this cheating program from morning to night, and she wakes up the next day listening to that programming. And of course, he gets to walk on eggshells around her. He could explain to her and promise and swear on a stack of Bibles that he would never, ever do this. But she can't hear him. She can't hear him because her radar is set on the cheat frequency. So what we get to do in marriage and communication coaching is to distinguish those influences that are left over from childhood that are distorting our capacity to manage a successful marriage today. It's one of the most fun things we can do. And indeed, the whole program of marriage and communication is we don't spend a lot of time in the past, but this is an instance where the past has a hard a strong influence on the future. So we spend a little time distinguishing, how did you come to know yourself when you're 2 years old, 5 years old, 12 years old? And that includes previous marriages.
Hmm.
So this is it's exciting because I talked to someone this morning and he is constantly seeking validation, which is an echo of a childhood where he was not validated for anything. And she could validate him till the cows come home, but he really can't hear. So taking a page from the five love languages, words of affirmation, we get to restore thank you and you're welcome on her life today. Because many of us say thank you to strangers, they neglect to say thank you to the people we love. So her instruction, I'll see them the day after tomorrow. And her instructions for today is just find things to thank him for. And so he feels validated. Could be as easy a tweak as that. And then when we get to this childhood where he was not validated, we can reprogram, we can recode that too. It's one of the most successful, usually session 4, but possibly session 3. Let's take your inner child offline. Why not?
Now, I want to go deeper with the example you gave, and thanks for sharing that with that couple and that gentleman who needs validation, and perfectly understandable. Many of us, as I understand it, go through life feeling that we're not good enough for all different reasons. We might not have gotten total validation from both parents. We may have gotten bullied. We may have, there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. How is that identified? How did you identify that he needs validation? Where did that come up?
Well, in our introductory conversation, which had less than an hour ago, she realized that he's always seeking validation from people around him in his life, which is also a doorway perhaps to future infidelity, because she noticed that he's looking for all the people he works with and he spends time with. He's looking for validation. He's always listening for validation.
Hmm.
And so the first place we're going to go is restore thank yous and your welcomes. And I'm proud of you. I'm grateful to you for. I admire you for. I respect you for. So just in the ordinary words of affirmation that can be living from now on, the very first step is she gets to be aware of opportunities to appreciate him, which she then will, which will leave him feeling validated and less vulnerable, liable to seek validation from everybody else outside of their marriage.
And it's just a simple, I appreciate you. Thank you. Really, it comes down to just hearing those words. But some people in a relationship might not be so wired to show their appreciation so much, or maybe they did in the beginning, time went on, and then that kind of got lost in the relationship, and he's still running on the same program as when he was a kid.
Exactly right. I mean, one thing I learned from doing this work, and one of the couple said to me about 2 weeks ago, she said, I used to appreciate him spontaneously, but now I look for opportunities to appreciate him.
Hmm.
And that's what transformation sounds like. Know that
Wow.
he's aware that words of affirmation is his maiden love language. She listens for opportunities to provide that. And we progress together for the rest of our lives. It's really not that comfortable once you difficult when you've learned how to dance with the person you're married to. And then we'll go off and reprogram some old code. So that's why it takes 5 sessions. We get a lot of we're installing a dashboard for marriage. That's
Hmm.
how it is. It's just like a dashboard in your car. You get a check engine light, you know what to do. You hear someone looking for validation, you know what to do. But these old memes, is one person, in this case, they're 51 years old and they've been protecting themselves from being abandoned for the
Hmm.
entire length of their life, which means that when she gets into a relationship, she has one bag packed and one foot out the door because she's protecting herself from feeling that ever again. Um, and at least into the last few years of now what will be 25 years of marriage, I rarely let Rita know what I wanted. But she, being acts of service, would instantly show her love for me by providing what I wanted. And now I tell her, and golly darn, she has the information she needs to know how to show love to me. It's really, it's why I use the Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman as one of the most illuminating books that we can read aloud together, taking turns. Um, and then there are people who have previous marriages were abusive. And she learned to navigate an abusive marriage, but now they're not. And so we get to rewrite old code that doesn't belong in the context of her current marriage. It's really more like rewriting old code. Once you know the code is there, we can cut, paste, delete, and replace it with code that leaves us feeling loved and connected.
Are all of these situations, whether it was more recent, last example you gave, a previous relationship, or something from a childhood, would that all be considered a quote unquote trauma?
I think like maybe there's a degree of damage, but I don't really call it so much trauma. Perhaps an abusive relationship, perhaps. But in one instance, he was the firstborn grandchild of his family. And he got a lot of, oh, it's a boy, how cute, he's so smart. And for the first 18 months of his life, he got a lot of accolade and attention. And that was his norm. That's what life was. You know it because that's the life he lived.
Mm-hmm.
And then his brother's born. He's not even 2 years old. And all the attention that he used to get from his surrounding family and relatives shifted to a different level because they were now looking at his younger brother. So for the next 40 years, he acts out, grabbing any attention, positive or negative, does not matter. He'd blurt sentences in the middle of a conversation just to grab people's attention. And he's been living that life given by an upset 2-year-old for 44 years.
Mm.
Once we could distinguish that, he has power to shift his way of being. And of course, his spouse could provide him with endless attention, and he would not notice it because he lives in a world given by not enough. Something's wrong here. Attention. So even if she does it, it does go in one ear and out the other. So really the work has to be done at the level of individual to start with. What is it you made up to be true at a much younger age that when rewritten provides us with a whole endless new future?
All of this stuff so impactful in relationships, and there could be many marriages dissolving because these things have not been resolved. I think I shared pieces of a friend of mine who is going through a divorce, and it came from, he believes, and going through therapy with his wife, and she had issues or challenges with her father. Her father left the family unexpectedly
Mhm.
when they were, I think, he said like 7, somewhere around there. Fast forward 15 years of marriage. Guess what she did? Just said one day, I want to get a divorce. Blindsided everybody in the family, had no idea it was coming. Sometimes you sense things. He really didn't sense anything. All the pieces were there. A lot of times he said like how intimacy goes away and things like that. He goes, oh, it was all there. And that was the beginning of that. But when he traces it back, that's where he believes it came from, her unresolved challenges with her father. Um, I look at it and I'm like, I'm surprised it lasted 15 years with no real major issues, because it's almost as if that's what his wife knew and that's what she did. She just relied on what she's comfortable with, just walking away.
You hear what you want to hear, or you don't hear what you want to hear. And when we become aware of it, we have access to it. So a
Mm,
lot of what we do in marriage and communication coaching is developing mutual awareness, love languages, personal personality types, the influence of childhood, and a whole mess of tools that allow you to clean up the past. Apology. I think we did apology already. I
Hmm.
think. If not, we'll do it next time. And you can switch your life by changing an O for an E. And maybe we'll spend a little more time on this next time. Because most of us live a have to life. Have to. I need to. I should. And I must. And when we tune our radio station to listen to that have to, need to, should, ought to, and must channel, the world gets to be a very noisy place. Democrats need to, Republicans ought to. As a nation, we should. The president must.
Mm.
Doesn't matter whether you're MSNBC or Fox News, they use the same disempowering language. We have to go shopping. We need to go to work. I have to get up. I need to shave. I need to talk to this person. And if we listen a little closely, you'll hear an or else. Why do you have to? Or else. Why does a nation we should? Or else the Russians will win. Why do we have to preserve these civil rights? Why do I need to go shopping? Why do I have to go to work? And if you listen for the or else and you hear one, you're likely to notice that you're living a life that circumstances live your life. You are not the driver, because everything you do from the moment you wake up in the morning is because you have to. You have to go to work. You need to go shopping. You have to change the baby. In a have to, need to, should, ought to, must life, you are not at choice. You don't have opportunity. You don't have possibility. In fact, you can't even change your mind. Because if you did, or else.
Mm.
And that's the have to. Um, and when you switch an O for an E, you get to have a get to life. Wow. All we do is swap two vowels and you get a get to life. In a get to life, you can change your mind just because you want to. You are the driver. You have choice, you have possibility, you have opportunity, none of which exists so long as you're living in a have to life. And it's enormously empowering because if you have to go to work, that means about 10% or more of you is on a beach somewhere, and your performance is inevitably influenced. You don't have to like your work, you don't have to like the people you work with. But if you get to go to work, you're 100% there, rather than part of you is parked on a beach in Hawaii. You know, we have to get going is much more difficult than we get to get going. Think about this. And if you happen to be a parent and your child says, do I have to do my homework? Which I'm sure we all have said this one side or another. Well, now the parent says, well, you don't have to do your homework. You get to do your homework. Feel this. If you have to do your homework, you take longer to get to it. You might procrastinate entirely. You'll do the minimum amount to fulfill the assignment, and you will learn a lot less. If, however, beloved child, you get to do your homework, you'll get it done sooner. You will learn more,
Mm.
and your grades will look like that. So I can't erase the homework. That's the assignment. But how you live your life, and this is from a young child, say 10 years old, can hear this. If you get to do your homework, you'll have time to play before dinner. If you have to do your homework, you may forget about it all the time and then you lose a grade. So I encourage couples to listen to themselves and then reboot their speaking. If I hear my spouse saying, well, I have to go shopping, I'll go, have to? And she says, oh, I get to go shopping. And away she goes. And I tell the couples, you don't have to come back for your other sessions. You get to. Coming to me is not an obligation. It's not a burden. It's not something to be resisted. You come here because there's something you get to have for the quality of your life. And by the way, get to parents raise get to children who become get to adults. And that's truly exciting. And when your 20-year-old sees their life as an opportunity, it's a vastly different life. They don't have to learn the hard way.
It's so interesting when you take a look at all the things that need to get done and you reframe it to the get to. Like I got a text from my daughter earlier, and she would like to go to her friends to sleep over because they're off this week. It's a holiday week. I need to leave work, go back home, and basically come back here. It's the same area.
Mhm.
And I could look at it as I have to drive home, pick her up, come back and drop her off. But I'm looking at it as I get to do that because I have a wonderful daughter. I love her. I
Mhm.
want her to be happy.
Mhm.
She would be home just hanging out by herself. I want her to socialize. So that's important. And she wants to. So I look at it as a positive thing. And it's a
You
lot of
get,
driving. I'm not going to lie. Like literally,
and you get to drive, and you get to be a father to your daughter, and you get to listen to her. And by the way, if you might recall from an earlier session, we don't get to react to our children because when we react, we don't get the information we need to respond appropriately as a parent. We get to listen to them. When your daughter says, Dad, I want this, it's really important to me, you say, Yes, I'm listening. And then you get the information you need. They feel heard, honored, and respected, which we might point out, a teenager will let you know if they don't feel respected. And when we listen them out, that sometimes may be enough. And we get to interrupt things we learned from our parents who grew up with their parents, who grew up with their parents. Some of these patterns go on for generations.
well,
You know,
I we're just about out of time, but you flicked something in my mind just now, in the same regard. So what did my mom do? The same exact thing. My mom would drive me to work. I got a job in radio at 17. Doesn't really happen. I did. Scored big. Big station, by the way. It was that big. She drove me every single day and came back because it was a AM station and they signed off and picked me up, took me home. I have a driver's license, obviously. I went to school. She would go to work. She would leave work early, drive me back and forth. And I didn't realize until you just said that. I'm doing that for my daughter because I could just say, no, I'm not going to do it. But I know it's important to her. So
mhm,
I'm kind of repeating the it's generational is where I'm getting at. Um, you have a 5 session package, which is kind of the center for how you help people.
mhm,
I was not aware until I went on your website and went to that page. By the way, fantastic website. Uh, that is so affordable for what and how it can change your life.
mhm.
It really, really is. It's almost a no-brainer for 5 sessions for what you're charging. It's
The 5 sessions are far cheaper than 2 hours with a lawyer, right?
even if you paid out of pocket for therapy, because I do for my daughter, to be quite honest with you, uh, it costs way more than that.
A
Much.
divorce will cost you tens of thousands of dollars and endless disruption in your life and your finances and your parenting. And listen, $750 for 5 sessions with me, it's cheap.
It really is. It really is. And if every couple did this, I would have to imagine we cut the divorce rate radically,
Well, right
radically.
now, 50% of first marriages fail.
Yeah.
60% of second marriages fail, according to the US Census Bureau. Only now you have children.
Yep. Yep.
So I will look forward to, we'll talk more next week. Um, and if people have questions, send them in
Yeah.
so we can address your personal needs soon.
Yeah. We touch upon a lot of things here. Instant feedback, steve@gmail.com. If you have a question for Paul or for the show, but if you want to reach out directly, your website, easy to find. It's marriageandcommunication.com, right?
That's it. And
Yep.
it is what it says, because some people have marriages, but no communication.
Yeah.
A bit of a missing there. And call me. I'll answer the phone. And sessions can be managed by Zoom if necessary. I
Yeah.
have a couple. He's in Alaska in the military. She's in Pennsylvania, working in Philadelphia somewhere. We can have three-way sessions easily by Zoom when required.
Yeah. Paul, great talking with you today. A lot of insight for what makes us tick. And I get to be with you again next week, and I appreciate that.
You are very welcome.
Thank you.
Talk to you then.
We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.